Shavua Tov Rabotai. We are continuing with our Mishna Yomi. We begin today a new Mishnah, Mishnah Masechet Gittin. Today's Mishnah should be Le'elu Nishmat Neria ben Svetlana Ranbai V'Eliyahu ben Burcha Israelov Chana bad Miriam Sason ben Ryan Yoshua ben Shifra Menuchatam beGan Eden Amen and Le'avdil ben Lechaim for the Refuah Shelema Daniel Shalom ben Rosa B'toch Shah Cholei Israel. Masechet Gittin deals with the laws of divorce. The term get, or plural Gittin, refers not to the divorce itself, but to the document that brings about the divorce when the husband gives it to the wife. The term get is not found in biblical Hebrew, but was adopted in the times of the Mishnah. It actually refers to a legal document of any kind, such as a bill of sale, but it has come to be used mainly for a bill of divorce. The Vilna Gaon makes the brilliant observation that in the entire written Torah, the two letters Gimel and Tet, how you spell get, are never next to each other within one word. Since these letters are always separated from each other, they are an appropriate title for the instrument that separates husband and wife from each other. Now, the Torah writes in Sefer Dvarim, chapter 24, verse 1, if a man takes a wife and cohabits with her, and it comes to pass that she does not find favor in his eyes because he has found in her an immoral matter, he shall write for her a document of separation and place it in her hand and send her from his house. We begin now with Perek Aleph, Mishnah Aleph. A person does not have to hand the get directly to his wife in order to divorce her. He can also send it with a messenger. The tractate begins with the law instituted by the sages for a messenger who brings a woman a get from her husband in another country. Hamivi get midina tayam, a messenger who brings a get from overseas, any place that is outside Eretz Yisrael, to a woman in Eretz Yisrael. Must say in front of two witnesses when delivering the get, this get was written in my presence and signed in my presence, meaning the get is not a forgery. Since the get was written far away, if the husband later comes and claims it is a forgery, it will be hard to find witnesses who can testify to its authenticity. If the husband later denies having written the get, the wife will have to authenticate it by producing witnesses to testify that the signatures on the get are authentic. If she cannot do so, the get is considered invalid, and she is therefore considered to still be married to her husband. If she has already remarried, her second marriage is therefore considered adultery, and she will have to leave her second husband. The sages therefore decreed that in such cases, the messenger must be present when the get is written and signed, and when he delivers it, he must make this declaration to certify that the get is authentic. Although two witnesses are usually needed to authenticate a document, in this case the rabbis allowed us to rely on the testimony of the messenger alone, so that the wife will not be trapped in a situation where she cannot remarry simply because she cannot find two witnesses. Since the requirement to authenticate documents is only rabbinic in origin, the rabbis were able to make an exception here, as the Gemara in Gittin writes on page 3a. As a result, the husband will not be believed if he later claims it as a forgery. And this is the halachically accepted reason for this law. The Gemara also records a different reason that we will mention later. The Mishnah cites other opinions as to whether this law applies. Rabban Gamliel says, even a messenger who brings a get to Eretz Yisrael from the town of Rekem or from the town of Cheger, which are right outside the eastern border of Eretz Yisrael, must say, this get was written in my presence and signed in my presence. Although these towns are close to Eretz Yisrael, the people do not go to Eretz Yisrael often, so if a get was written in one of these towns, it would likely be hard to find witnesses in Eretz Yisrael who can testify to its authenticity. Therefore, the messenger who delivers such a get must pronounce it authentic by making this declaration. Rabbi Eliezer says, "Afilu mikfar ludim lelud." Even a messenger who brings a get from Kfar Ludim to Lud must make this declaration. Kfar Ludim was a town outside Eretz Yisrael, but it was so close to the border that it was actually surrounded by land of Eretz Yisrael. The border of Eretz Yisrael is jagged and stretches farther in some places than in others. Kfar Ludim is located next to a recessed section of the border and is surrounded by towns that are in Eretz Yisrael. The town of Lud is in Eretz Yisrael, right across the border from Kfar Ludim. This is in the Arts Illustrated Note 5, there's an illustration there of the map. Now, Rabbi Eliezer holds that even a messenger who brings a get the short distance from Kfar Ludim to the neighboring town of Lud, which is in Eretz Yisrael, must make this declaration. People from Kfar Ludim were often present in Lud because the towns were so close together, and a get written in Kfar Ludim could easily be authenticated in Lud. Nevertheless, Rabbi Eliezer holds that the sages instituted a blanket requirement that a messenger coming from anywhere outside Eretz Yisrael must make this declaration. Now, the sages agree with the first Tana of the Mishnah that the law applies only to places far from Eretz Yisrael. They also mention some more instances where it applies. The Chachamim omrim, and the sages say, "Eno tzarich shoma b'fanai nechtav, b'fanai nechtam." A messenger does not have to say this get was written in my presence and signed in my presence, unless he brings a get from overseas, far from Eretz Yisrael. V'amulich, or takes a get from Eretz Yisrael to overseas. Just as people from overseas are not often present in Eretz Yisrael, people from Eretz Yisrael are not often present overseas, and witnesses would not be able overseas to authenticate. Witnesses will not be available overseas to authenticate a get from Eretz Yisrael. Therefore, the messenger must authenticate it by making this declaration. In addition, a messenger who brings a get from one country to another country overseas must also say this get was written in my presence and signed in my presence. Similarly, people from one country are not often present in other countries. Accordingly, if a get is brought from another country, the messenger must authenticate it. A final opinion, Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel says, Afilu me'egmonia le'egmonia. Even one who brings a get from one jurisdiction to another jurisdiction in the same town must make the declaration. Now, these are areas within the same town that are ruled by different governors who do not allow people to cross easily from one district to another, since it will likely be difficult to find witnesses to testify to the authenticity of a get that comes from the other district. The messenger who brings such a get must authenticate it by making the declaration. Now, the Mishnah here was explained according to the halachically accepted opinion. However, the Gemara on page 2b in Masechet Gittin also records another opinion, which gives a different reason why a messenger must authenticate a get from overseas. Many people who lived overseas were not familiar with the laws of writing a get, specifically the law that a get must be written for the sake of the particular woman it will be given to. Therefore, a messenger who brings a get from there must declare that he saw it being written properly. The next few Mishnah are going to be explained according to the accepted opinion, like this Mishnah was explained. That is the end of Mishnah Aleph. Now, having said that a messenger who brings a get from outside Eretz Yisrael must declare this get was written in my presence and signed in my presence, Mishnah Bet defines the borders of Eretz Yisrael with regard to this law. Rabbi Yehuda says, Mirekem la Mizrach, any place from Rekem eastward is considered outside of Eretz Yisrael with regard to a messenger who brings a get from there. Rekem ka Mizrach, and Rekem itself is like the area to the east, meaning a messenger who brings a get from the town of Rekem, which was right outside the eastern border of Eretz Yisrael, or from anywhere to the east of Rekem, must declare this get was written in my presence and signed in my presence. Now, this obviously follows the opinion of Rabban Gamliel in the previous Mishnah. Me'ashkelon ledarom, the same applies to the area from Ashkelon southward. V'ashkelon kedarom, and Ashkelon itself is like the area to the south. Me'akko letzafon, the same applies to the area from Akko northward. V'akko ketzafon, and Akko itself is like the area to the north. Although Ashkelon and Akko are actually in Eretz Yisrael, they are far from the main settlement of Eretz Yisrael. Therefore, people from these towns were not able to authenticate a get that was brought to the main settlement of Eretz Yisrael. Accordingly, the messenger must declare the get authentic, as explained in the previous Mishnah. On the west, Eretz Yisrael is bordered by the Mediterranean Sea, so there is no need for the Mishnah to define that border. Rabbi Meir says, Akko ke'Eretz Yisrael Gittin. Akko is like Eretz Yisrael with regard to Gittin, meaning a messenger who brings a get from Akko does not have to declare it authentic. Rabbi Meir maintains that people from Akko would be available in Eretz Yisrael to authenticate a get if necessary. Therefore, a messenger who brings a get from Akko does not have to authenticate it. And that is in Abotai of today's Mishna Yomi. Everybody should have a Shavua Tov. Baruch Adonai Leolam. Amen v'amen.